Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharini Nirvisesa Sudhvati Vaskadya Vidutarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Grantha Raja ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hare Bol. So, I think we're on, what?
2.7.
7. Okay, it's a very famous verse. Karpanyadoso pahata swabhava Richa mitvam dharma samudacheta Yache rakshanissitam ruhitan me Sisyaste hamsa dimam ram prapanam. Okay. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you, Krishna, to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Who's going to read it?
By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. All Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life, which happen without our desire. They are like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, one must approach a spiritual master who is in the disciplic successor. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not therefore remain in material perplexities, but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse. Who is the man in material perplexities? It is he who does not understand the problems of life. In the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 3.8.10, the perplexed man is described as follows: Yo va etad aksharam gargi abhiditva samar lokat praiti sa karpana. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human and who thus quits this world like the cats and dogs without understanding the science of self-realization. This human form of life is a most valuable asset for the living entity who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. Therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. On the other hand, there is the Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. Ya etad aksharam gargi viditvasama lokat praitisa brahmana. The karpanas or miserly persons, the kripanas or miserly persons who waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc. in the material conception of life, etc. in the material conception of life. One is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children and other members on the basis of skin disease. The Kripana thinks that he is able to protect his family members from death, or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals who take care of children also. Being intelligent, Arjuna could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him, still on account of miserly weakness, he could not discharge the duties. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, to make a definite solution. He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. He wants to stop friendly talks. Talks between the master and the disciple are serious, and now Arjuna wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. Krishna is therefore the original spiritual master of the science of Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna is the first disciple for understanding the Gita. How Arjuna understands the Bhagavad Gita is stated in the Gita itself, and yet foolish mundane scholars explain that one need not submit to Krishna as a person, but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without, and one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita.
Very good. Well, here Prabhupada uses strong language in describing the Kripana. Kripana is a miserly person who wastes their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc., in a material conception of life. So, what is the material conception of life? I deal with it specifically in this booklet. And okay, so it says, the intelligence of materialists become corrupted by continual activities, prompted by passion and ignorance. They become convinced that the goal of life is sense gratification. This distracts the mind from the pursuit of self-realization, which should result in the realization one is the eternal servant of Krishna, and thus one should engage in his loving devotional service. Such misconception of life diverts one's attention to pursuing the attempt to acquire more and more money so that one may have unrestricted sense enjoyment. Thus, one is overwhelmed by the material conception of life, which is summarized as follows. 1. Attachment to the objects of sense gratification. 2. One is preoccupied by many material desires, and when one is frustrated, he develops hatred and envy. 3. One seeks happiness outside of himself by enticing victims for his sense gratification. He seeks the company of other persons suffering from the same illusions. He dislikes the feeling of loneliness and seclusion as long as he feels successful in materialistic society. 4. He has a tendency to overindulge in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. 5. He loses control over the activities of the senses and the mind. 6. Due to identifying oneself with temporary body rather than the eternal soul within the body, he develops the false ego that he is the body and identifies himself with temporary designations of family, race, ethnicity, nationalism, etc. 7. He tries to prolong his existence in the temporary body by material strategies of diet, bodybuilding, supplements, plastic surgery, and other medical procedures. 8. Because of all his misconceptions, he develops the false ego and becomes falsely proud of his temporary material achievements. 9. He is never satisfied, and whenever he is frustrated in achieving his material goals, he becomes angry and resentful, and always blames others for his failures. 10. When he cannot get as much sense gratification as he wants, he becomes angry and delusional in his behavior. 11. He overendeavors to acquire material sense objects and always seeks to be praised for his material possessions and achievements. 12. He becomes completely entangled and attached excessively to material things, and in his total state of bewilderment loses all interest in spiritual knowledge and God-related pursuits. 13. His mind then is overwhelmed by material considerations, and he becomes continually anxious and fearful as he gets older, sick, and approaches death. There are three stages of the material conception of life. 1. Negligence of spiritual life because of too much attachment to material pleasures. 2. Fear of an eternal spiritual personal identity that gives rise to the mistaken concept that one may merge into the homogeneous oneness of the impersonal light called the Brahman effulgence. 3. Or the conception of void after death that comes from frustration in life, from which one develops disbelief in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. One may adopt different forms of intoxication, and any hallucinations one may experience are accepted spiritual visions. Another aspect of accepting the material conception of life is the perverted material understanding one develops of the different species of life due to ignorance of the soul. One sees only the different types of bodies of living beings: dog, cat, man, elephant, insect, fish, bird, etc. The reality is that the individual soul in each species of life has nothing to do with the incidental bodies that entrap him. One receives a material body according to the different unfulfilled desires of the previous life and karma, the good and bad reactions of activities. The Bhagavad Gita explains how to see correctly. One who sees the supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the supersoul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees. Bhagavad Gita 13:28. Okay, so anyway, we get an idea of the material conception of life.
What are
So,
the first, second, third, probably?
what? These are three stages of the material
No,
conception.
before that, you said 11 points.
Attachment, number 1 is attachment to the objects of sense gratification. 2, one is preoccupied by many material desires, and when one is frustrated, he develops hatred and envy. 3, one seeks happiness outside of himself by enticing victims for his sense gratification. He seeks the company of other persons suffering from the same illusions. He dislikes the feeling of loneliness and seclusion as long as he feels successful in materialistic society. Wait a minute, you can get the book, it's at the temple. Okay, so here Prabhupada says that the kripanas, or miserly persons, waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc., in the material conception of life. One is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children, and other members, on the basis of skin disease. Well, being attached to family members is not necessarily a bad thing if it's on the basis of working collectively to solve the real problems of life. But if it's simply on the basis of skin disease, that is, sense gratification, material advancement, prestige, and ultimately strong material attachments, then that is condemned. So there's two bases. One is this family attachment on the basis of working cooperatively together to be liberated from birth, death, old age, and disease. And there's family cooperation to increase sense gratification, increase involvement in the material world of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, that's why I say it's not necessarily a bad thing if it's on the basis of working together to solve the real problems of life. Okay, so the Kripana thinks that he's able to protect his family members from death, or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death, or from the prospect of death. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals, who take care of children also. Being intelligent, Arjuna could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. So, Prabhupada definitely makes it clear that one should not be a parent or a teacher or have any type of position of authority that people look up to for guidance if they cannot save a person from the cycle of birth and death. So, therefore, it's a very heavy responsibility to be a parent. And therefore, one should be trained before they become a parent of understanding what the real duty of a parent is. Otherwise, the relation becomes mundane, and the whole life people are just thinking and talking about mundane achievements which are all temporary and cannot really help a person at the moment of death. So this family attachment, if it's on the wrong basis, it can lead to a type of paralysis. So Arjuna was paralyzed. He couldn't do his duty because of this miserly, on account of miserly weakness. He could not discharge the duties. So we see again the insistence on duty, performing duties in life, and that's one way of looking at what dharma is. Dharma is a duty that we have by virtue of being part and parcel of God. We belong to God, so therefore, or Krishna, therefore we have a duty to serve God. And if we rationalize through different means not to perform that duty, then we're in the situation of Arjuna. We become Kripana, a selfish person and a miserly person. And apparently from this purport, the only way one can, and the verse, the only way one can overcome this weakness is by approaching bona fide spiritual masters, Shiksha and Diksha Gurus. And here Arjuna says, now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. So he's put his own, he's able to understand his dilemma to a certain degree. He realizes that he's not able to do his duty, and it's because of, he describes it as karpanya dosa, by the weakness of miserliness, karpanya dosha. However, in that, let's call it helpless condition, he turns to Krishna and asks him, please tell me what's best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you, please instruct me. So, this is the quintessential realization a person has to come to in order to sincerely approach a spiritual master. You have to realize that they're not able to figure out what they should actually be doing. What is their duty? Or what is the actual dharma, prescribed duty that they should be performing? Now, people will explain to them, well, your duty, you have to be loyal to your family, you have to work hard, earn a living, put your kids through school, do this, do that, and you have to be loyal to your family, loyal to your race, loyal to your ethnicity, loyal to your national affiliation, and so forth. So people will define so many duties in life. Right? But ultimately, all those duties are mundane. They don't lead, those type of duties doesn't lead a person to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. In fact, those type of duties keep you in the cycle of birth and death.
Mundane.
So how can we understand what is our real duty in life? Well, we need to help people who are tattvadarshi, able to see at all times what is the real purpose of life, able to see the truth of why we are in this world and why we are existing. And why are we here? Why is there a material world? It's to rehabilitate us. It's to give us a chance to go back to Godhead. So any philosophy that takes us away from that is Maya. It could be any ism, nationalism, racism, familyism, workism, any ism that takes us away from that purpose of life is considered Maya, or an illusion. Okay, are there any questions about this? This is an extremely important verse. Prabhupada often quotes this verse, especially the line, Sisyaste ham sadimam tvam prapanam. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. This is the position of a person who's woken up, who's awake to what their real dilemma is in life. They don't know what to do.
You said like one shouldn't be a parent if you can't liberate your child from the cycle of birth and death. Or but the spiritual master is the real person who can help us. The parent can do that.
Yeah, but for the child, you are a spiritual master. At least in the formative years. The parent is the spiritual master, are the spiritual masters.
We can provide some guidance, but can we be like really responsible? Can we take the complete responsibility of liberating your own kid?
Yes. Yeah. If you are Krishna conscious, you can. What does it mean to be Krishna conscious? You know what the goal of life is. You live in such a way to try and reach that goal, so that's inspiring to others. Right? I'll give you an example. Like, for example, while people are in India, if they grow up in traditional families, they learn to go to the temple, they learn to bow down before the deity, they learn to offer respect to gurus, they learn to respect holy days, and they go on pilgrimages also. That's, I would say, traditional life in traditional India. Right? And for the most part, they're vegetarians. Then they come to America and they're trying to follow those things, but they send their kids to schools and the kids get overwhelmed by all their friends. And oftentimes, the parents permit their kids to eat meat because the kids feel that they will be shunned by their friends at school. It's always a difficult experience for them to always, be eating vegetarian when everyone else is eating meat. So some parents just give in and let their kids eat meat, even though they themselves may not eat meat. They were not taught to eat meat at home. But it happens a lot. So, is that the right thing to do as a parent? No. But the parent becomes overwhelmed also because the kid is complaining all the time. Well, I go to school, and people are making fun of me. Why can't I eat meat also? So then, one thing will lead to another thing. Meat is first, then something else comes, then something else comes. All of a sudden, one is breaking all four regulative principles. in the name of social integration, right, due to peer pressure. And the parents don't know what to do. They just go along with it. I'm not saying everyone's like that, but there are many cases like that. Many cases like that. So, unless one is convinced, and this is the problem, I mean, one can traditionally follow things in India without being convinced that that's the truth. They just go along with the flow, right? But unless one is trained, just like Arjuna is asking to be trained here. He said, look, I don't know what to do. I want to become your disciple, and I'm surrendered to you. You please instruct me. You tell me what's good for me. So unless one takes that serious step, simply following by custom and habit is not a secure position. It's better than nothing, but it's not a secure position, because all you have to do is put yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by people who don't have the same customs and habits that you do, and that you could get bewildered by it, and all of a sudden start to break that tradition. So therefore, acceptance of bona fide spiritual masters is essential for spiritual life.
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes.
So when you say that, like, I mean, the primemost duty is to serve God, and of course as a
Why?
parent-
Because we're part and parcel of God, right? Mamaivam sa jiva loka, jiva bhuta sanatana. We are jiva bhuta sanatana. We're the eternal part and parcel of God. We come from Krishna. We belong to Krishna.
So that way, serving one's parents is a higher duty than taking care of the children.
How did you get that? How did you arrive at that conclusion? Show us your path of reasoning coming to that conclusion.
No, I'm just asking question in the order of duty. Like God is the supreme, and then what's the order?
Well,
So we have different roles in the society.
They are the spiritual masters in that sense.
a spiritual master would never tell you disregard your parents or disregard your children. A bona fide spiritual master would never say that. But the spiritual master would explain that if the parents are trying to convince you to not follow the spiritual path, then that's a problem. That's a red flag. You know, like sometimes parents will say, "Well, okay, you mean?" Like for example, there was once a father and a son. I've told this story before. The father and son. Father was taking his son to the temple, and they would listen to the pravachan. And one day the Pandit was talking about, how you should be kind to cows always. Cow is our mother. And you should never be hostile to the cows. You should feed cows. You should be sensitive to their needs, because the cow gives us the perfect food in the form of milk, and so forth. So it so happened that the father was a grocer. What's the word? Is it bucko? You say bucko? Or what's the word for a grocer?
Baniya.
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 Oh, okay, it's a baniya.
Baniya.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Businessman.
yeah, and the boy would help his father in the store. So the next day, Monday, they went to the store. They opened up early, and the boy had to take all the sacks of grains and spices and put it in front of the store, and the baskets and everything. And the father was on the phone ordering things, talking. This is like 7, 8 in the morning. And along comes a cow. And the cow is hungry. It's early in the morning. And rather than eat plastic and garbage, he sees all these nice things. So the cow comes over, and the boy normally would chase the cow away, but after hearing that lecture, he lets the cow eat. And the father's talking, on the phone like this, and he's ordering things and discussing prices. And he sees outside the cow's eating, the boy's just looking, he starts screaming, and the boy just lets the cow eat. So he throws the phone down, runs out and says, what are you doing? Chase this cow away. How come you're letting him eat? He said, Dad, yesterday the pundit was saying we should always be kind to cows. And they're like our mother. He said, no, you don't understand. He said, what is it I don't understand? When you go to the temple, you just sit there and listen, but you don't take it seriously. Right? So this is the problem. A lot of people like that. They'll listen to the class, but they don't take it seriously. Right? It doesn't affect their life at all. But the boy was, pure in heart. It touched his heart, and he wanted to be kind to the cow. But the father, said, "No, you got to chase him away. We're not going to feed cows. We'll lose money if we feed the cows." Okay, so are we going to listen seriously to the Vedic wisdom, or it's just like custom and habit? You just listen because it's traditional, but you don't take it seriously. Now, Srila Prabhupada was one time one of the ladies asked Prabhupada a question. She said, Prabhupada, you seem to be emphasizing all the time Sankirtan and book distribution, but I'm a mother and I have to be with my child all day long, and I feel as if I'm not really serving you, I'm not doing the right thing. Prabhupada said, your service is to take care of your child. And he said, by taking care of your child, your child will grow up in a home of love and affection, and naturally a child will be a devotee because of the happy home and affection. So he specifically made the point that the mother's job and the father's job is to take care of the child. And again, we come back to the point, the mother and father have to be the gurus. Let's say the first gurus, the Vartma Pradakshika gurus. The gurus, there's three types of gurus, Vartma Pradakshika, Shiksha, and Diksha guru. The Vartma Pradakshika guru, Vartma Pradakshika. Vartma Pradakshika. The first guru is the person that introduces you to Krishna. So the mother and father are the first gurus of the child. And so Prabhupada accepted the service of the mother. Right? And he explained also that when you have an electric wire and it's connected, to the source of electricity, then wherever you touch it, you'll get a shock. Right? So he said that if the Guru accepts your service, then that means the service is bona fide. Right? So, and maybe one part of the electric wire is Sankirtan, another part of it is deity worship, another part is mother taking care of the child. As long as the Guru accepts the service and then offers it to Krishna, then it's a bona fide service. It's not that one is better than the other. So that is called the Varnashram system of social and spiritual organization of society. So Prabhupada accepted her service as necessary, just on an equal status with doing Sankirtan. She's doing a type of Sankirtan also. She's teaching her child to chant Hare Krishna and to be Krishna conscious. So that is like Sankirtan. Okay, so Any other questions? If not, we'll go on to text 8.
Just one question.
Yes.
So, when you're reading from your other write-up about what it
The material
what
conception
is
of life.
the material. So one of the things you mentioned is in one of the points there is like being aware of your health and taking care of your health to lead a happy, healthy life is also a form of material attachment because you're taking care of your
He
body.
tries to prolong his existence. Prolong means have a longer life
Yes.
in the temporary body by material strategies of diet, bodybuilding, supplements, plastic surgery, and other medical procedures. So, no, healthy life means you follow the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness. No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit connections. And always chanting Hare Krishna, regularly hearing Bhagavad Gita every day. Eating only simple food that's prasadam. And engaging in service. Working honestly. So if you follow these don'ts and do's, you'll have a very healthy life. Not overeating, sleeping early, waking up early, chanting regularly, bathing regularly, filling your whole mind with Krishna. So it's a lifestyle, but it's a very healthy lifestyle. You don't need plastic surgery, you don't need, all these different things, bodybuilding, supplements, different medical procedures, Botox. You have simple diet, simple lifestyle. Doesn't matter what your work is, but you have that, you're following the regulative principles. And, by the way, if you're interested in life extension, the best way is to refrain from sinful activities. Sinful activities will shorten your life. If you don't have bad habits, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't philander, you don't gamble, you have a healthy life. I once was speaking with one of my cousins, and I told him about that, and he said, "Are you crazy?" He said, "I may as well commit suicide if I follow those rules." So those are the only things that give me happiness in life. Well, he didn't have a very good idea what real happiness is. So, all those things are nasty things. They get you sick, and you die young by, eating meat, gambling, intoxicating, and so forth. So don't misunderstand that. These are all artificial things. Like, the Atkins diet. You can lose weight by avoiding carbohydrates and eating only proteins, which means you eat only meat and you lose weight. Well, you might lose weight. You might lose your dharma also. So you have to make a decision. So, all these type of, they talk about the Mediterranean diet, this diet, that diet. Right? Actually, it's D-I-E, it. Diet. Yeah. The best diet is prasadam. Simple prasadam. Right. And usually, sadhus eat very simply. They don't eat, gorgeous, huge feasts. They just get you sick. I mean, maybe they'll have a feast, but they always eat moderately, very moderately. Okay, so we'll go on to text here. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so even though you're doing all this,
Yes.
but you may had some karmas. Like it doesn't mean that there will be some disease or something may happen because of your past karmas coming to you, and still, so you still think that you cannot operate or
Operate? You have an operation like that?
yeah, operation something like you it's not
We
guaranteed.
go to
that-
the hospital, have an operation. Is that what you're talking about? No, we never did Prabhupada say you should not, seek medical help. He never said that.
These are more like artificial interventions,
Yeah.
right?
Well, Prabhupada tells a story. He had a servant named Buddhu in Calcutta. And he was not paying him much money. This guy, Buddhu, he was a strong guy. So, and one day, Prabhupada asked him, he said, Buddhu, he said, I'm not paying you much money. He said, how come you're so, strong? He was not, usually you go to Bengal, you see people are, kind of thin and, but Buddha was, stout and he was strong, He said, oh yeah, he said, you don't pay me much, but that's all right. I buy some chana flour, I mix it with water and I eat that every day with some chili and things. So chana flour, of course, is high protein food, high dietary fiber and everything. It's a lot, So one day Buddha got sick, and he was really sick. So Prabhupada got afraid, he took him to the hospital right away. And then the doctors were looking at him, and the doctor came out and he said, we're going to keep him here tonight. Prabhupada said, really? What's the matter? He said, well, we're not sure, he's very, very sick. We might have to operate. So Prabhupada was concerned, but there's nothing he could do. So he went back home, and in the morning, Buddha came. So Prabhupada was surprised. Said, Buddha, are you all right? Did they operate? He said, no. He said, they didn't operate. He said, so are you all right? He said, well, when they told me they were going to operate, my sickness went away. And then Prabhupada says, just see, he said, whenever someone is sick, you go to the doctor, if they can find a good excuse for the operation. Right? So, actually Buddha had, he had taken either too much pan or something like that, and got him sick. Right? I mean, in Bengal, you'll see, all over India, you see, red stains on the walls and on the streets, people are always spitting out the red pan. Right? So he must have taken too much and he got sick. But as soon as the doctor said operation, he got sober right away. He walked out. Yeah. So we should not be, Prabhupada took him to the hospital, right? So he was concerned about him. However, if you live this simple lifestyle, you will avoid most sicknesses. And even if you get sick, you'll be able to overcome it rather quickly because of a strong immune system. Because you're not filling your body up with toxins, junk food, sodium benzoate, potassium benzoate, and all those preservatives and denatured food, white flour, maida, dalda, and then, of course, if you eat meat and all that, then you're just filling the body up with more and more toxins. Eventually, the body gets overwhelmed and you get sick, and it becomes real serious.
We don't even store food.
What?
So we don't eat stale food even. Like after coming to Krishna consciousness, we learn that we have to cook fresh and eat fresh.
Yes.
Don't store food.
Yeah.
So
Don't cook too much. Just cook just the right amount.
Yeah.
And you are what you eat. So if you're eating just prasadam and you're moderately eating, it takes 4 hours to digest food. So if you snack between meals, you also get sick. But if you eat, See, even in America, people, in the traditional families, they would have breakfast, they would have lunch, and they would have dinner. And they were usually like 4 hours apart. And it wasn't like, everyone's eating at different times and watching television or playing with their cell phone. They would sit down, they would pray first, thank God, and then they'd be sitting down at the dinner table, and they would be discussing things. Or sometimes they would read the Bible before they eat. This is traditional in America. So don't look at what's happening today. You go to traditional parts of America, not so much the big cities, but in the country, people are still living like that. But the big cities, are functioning 24 hours a day, and there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressures on people. So they run. You see people, in their car, driving in one hand, eating a sandwich with the other hand. All that stuff gets you sick. And they're eating what's called fast food. It's actually fast death.
In office too, they do eat and meet.
Eat and meet.
Yeah, so they work and eat as well at the same time.
They eat meat and meat.
Exactly. Yeah. So they don't have time to just take out 10 minutes to just.
It's called this brown bag.
Brown bag sessions.
Yeah. Lunch
Brown
and
bag lunch.
Lunch and learn.
Yeah, brown bag
sessions.
sessions.
It's not traditional life. Traditional life is regulation. There's peace. There's not so much stress. Okay, so we'll go to text 8. Nahi prapasyami mama panudyat yokcho kampucho sanam indriyanam avatyabhumav asap patnam yadridam rajyam suranam apichadipatyam. I can find no means to drive away the grief which is drying up my sin. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. These are big, eloquent words by Arjuna. So who would like to read the purport? Anybody? There he is. Okay.
Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of spiritual master, Lord Sri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up in his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna consciousness is
Krishna conscious.
conscious is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is the real spiritual master.
Kiba vipra kiba nyasi sudra keninaya. Ye Krishna tattva vekta se guru haya.
It does not matter whether a person is a Vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 8.128. So without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literature.
Satkarma nipuno vipro mantra tantra visarada, avaishnavo guru nasyad, vaishnava swapako guru.
A scholarly Brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in the family of a lower
Caste.
caste can be a spiritual master if
Become.
can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna consciousness.
Okay, let's stop right there. This is a very important point. That will be contested by what we call caste brahmanas. The caste brahmanas are the ones who, by caste, by birth and family lineage, they are brahmanas. So this is a contentious point, and they say, oh no, these Americans, they cannot be gurus because they're not born in India, not born in Brahmin families. And this person is born in a Banya family, they cannot be a guru. And this person is a Sudra, he cannot be a guru. This person is a Dalit, they cannot be a guru. Like that. But yet, in traditional Vedic society and in history, there were many people who were not born in Brahmana families who were top gurus. In fact, two of Ramanujacharya's gurus were Sudras, but they were highly qualified. And the history of what's his name? Jabala. In the Jabala Upanishad, this boy named Jabal, he comes to Gautam Muni and asks him, can I become your disciple? And Gautam Muni says, you have to tell me what your gotra is. And the boy says, I don't know. He says, go ask your mother. So he asks his mother, and his mother starts to cry and says, I can't tell you. I was not living a good life, and I don't know exactly who your father is. So the boy comes back, and he tells Gautam Muni, Sir, my mother doesn't know what my gotra is. And Gautam Muni says, okay, then I accept you as my disciple. And the boy says, really? But I don't know what my gotra is. He said, no, you're Brahmana, you told the truth. See? So, on the other hand, Karna, he lied to Parasuram and said he was a Brahmana. But then Parasuram found out he was lying. So, Chaturanyam Mayashastam Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. One takes the position in the Varna and Ashrama according to quality and work, not according to birth. It's not there. Nowhere does it say birth. It says quality and work. And that's tradition. That's the real tradition of the Vedic culture. So, several points are made here that are very important. First of all, academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, and so forth are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. That means there are spiritual masters that are not like Krishna. Well, what does it mean, a spiritual master like Krishna? Well, Krishna is the original spiritual master. So anyone who teaches the same thing without adulterating it, the same thing that Krishna taught 5,000 years ago to Arjuna without adulterating it, that's a bona fide guru. And someone who deviates from the way Krishna taught Arjuna Bhagavad Gita. They're not guru. They might know Sanskrit, they might be a great astrologer or whatever, but they're not guru. Because only a person who repeats Krishna's words correctly and lives according to those words is a bona fide guru. So therefore, Prabhupada says, academic knowledge, scholarship, high position are all useless in solving the problems of life. So there was a great mathematician, his name was Kurt Gödel. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not. He was right up there with Einstein. In fact, they worked together at Princeton University for a number of years. And Gödel, he did some amazing things. He has his, he did a lot. He published a lot of papers, but one of them completely shocked the world of science and mathematics, where he proved mathematically that if you have consistency, there are two things you need to have to prove something absolutely to be true. You need the proof to be consistent and to be, as you call it, well, consistent and irrefutable, let's put it like that. So there's a paradox. It's called the liar's paradox. One time a king made an announcement that anyone who lies in my kingdom will be hanged. So the next day people lined up to come into the kingdom, and the first person was a brilliant sadhu. And when he walked in, the guard said, "Sir, you know that there's a new law. Anybody who lies is going to be hanged." He said, "Okay." So he said, "Do you have anything to say?" He said, "Yes. You're going to hang me today." He said, "We're going to hang you today. But you haven't told a lie." He said, "But then," he said, "that means that I just lied, because I said you were going to hang me and you're saying you're not going to hang me." He said, "Well, okay, then you're right. So then we'll have to hang you." He said, "That means I told the truth." You see? So if they don't hang him, it's a lie. If they do hang him, it's the truth. So they got, that's called the liar's paradox. Now the same thing happens in math, in mathematics. In order to have an absolute proof, something has to be consistent and irrefutable, right? But the Gödel proved that you can't have both. Because if you have both, then you can prove anything is true. You can prove anything is true. So that's not, in mathematics, anything can't be true. There has to be a right answer and a wrong answer, right? You can't have like the liar's paradox, where if you say one thing, either way it's true. So Gödel also was a brilliant guy, so he mathematically proved that God exists. But he kept it a secret and it was only revealed after he died. Now, why would he keep such a thing a secret? His mathematical proof that God exists. Why would he keep it a secret?
Pressure at the time?
Well, he was at Princeton. You have all these big intellectuals there. All these schools, Princeton, Harvard, all of them started as by religious churches. And then they transformed into citadels of atheism, as they are today. And by the time, the Second World War, Princeton was a place that was filled with atheists. And they were all brilliant guys, but they were all atheists. So, he was embarrassed to reveal his mathematical proof that God exists. And it only became, published after his death. That was his wish. Now, such people who are great academics, great scholars, great scientists, Prabhupada says, all useless in solving the problems of life. Now, did Prabhupada keep his knowledge a secret? No. He went around the world, risked his life, and preached, and built up, a great organization that's based on preaching the message of Krishna, right? And, he didn't do it through mathematics or science. He did it through Bhagavad Gita, which is the highest science. So we see that he's making a direct statement here, and it's a shocking statement. One time I was with Prabhupada, and he was on a morning walk, and he was lambasting. He was really criticizing the scientists. And I had just graduated college, and I'd never heard anyone criticize science and scientists. And I was just overwhelmed, And at one point, I said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I've never heard anyone speak like you before against the scientists. And Prabhupada looked at me and said, I can do it. I can do it. And he was pointing his finger like this. He said, I can do it. And then he said, you know why? And I was like shocked. I said, no, I don't. He said, because I know that Krishna is behind everything. Therefore I can do it. So that is what differentiates a devotee from let's call it someone who follows out of custom and habit. The devotee is absolutely sure that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that he is the source of all knowledge, and the goal of life is to serve Krishna. Absolutely sure about it. Therefore, he is Abhaya. That was Prabhupada's name. Abhaya Charanara Vinde. His father gave him that name, Abhaya. Fearless. Why? Because. Whereas Godel, he was fearful. So he kept his thing secret till after he died. So we need to, when we read these purports, we have to see Prabhupada has given very deep realizations. Now, most people say, well, this is nonsense. Academic knowledge, scholarship are all useless in solving the problems of life. Well, we're solving the problems of life. We cured malaria, and we cured smallpox, and we built rockets that can go to the moon. How is that, not solving the problems of life? Well, that doesn't really. You cured malaria, but the people that got cured, they're still going to die, right? And unless they're giving up sinful life and engaged in service of God, they'll take birth again. So you didn't cure the problem of life. So they throw up all these diversions. We can build bridges, we can build submarines, we can build tunnels, we can build skyscrapers, and we have airplanes and rockets, and we have chemotherapy and radiation therapy. You know, how can you say we're not solving the problems of life? None of those things solve the problems of life. And then he says here that if a person is master in the science of Krishna, he is perfect and a bona fide spiritual master. Well, this completely undermines all the caste Brahmins in India. The ones that say you have to be born in a Brahmana family to be a Brahmana. Well, let's say someone's born in a Brahmana family. I mean, I once met, one time we did a program in Paris. We were invited to go to this bar, this nightclub, and chant Hare Krishna. Now, that's not a nice place, but I thought, well, if they let us chant Hare Krishna, we'll just go. We're not going to drink, we're not going to smoke, we're not going to do anything. We'll just go there and chant and leave. At least they'll hear the name. So we went, and it was a nightclub, and they were drinking, but they let us chant. And then afterwards, we were going to leave, and one guy stopped me. He was an Indian. And he said, you know, he said, he was holding a glass of champagne. He said, you know, I'm a Brahmin. Really? Yes. I was born in Mathura. And then he did one of these things. He puts his hand on his neck and he pulls out his Brahmin thread. You know, and I said, oh, I said, you're a very fortunate person. Prabhupada calls such people 2 paisa Brahmin, because it only costs 2 paisa to get that string, right? So what kind of Brahmin? He's got champagne in one hand. He's in a nightclub, you know, and what kind of Brahmin is that? It's not a Brahmin. It's a barman. Big difference. So.
Prabhupada also says lawyer's son is not automatically lawyer, or a doctor's son is not automatically doctor.
Yes.
They have to have qualification.
They have to have a qualification. Yeah. There was one famous man. He was a Supreme Court lawyer in India. I think they call them barristers in India. And he had 2 sons. One was a lawyer, right? The other one was a rickshaw driver.
What?
A rickshaw driver. So they were both his sons, right? But one, due to bad association, became a rickshaw driver, and the other one became a big lawyer. So just because they're his sons, if they don't have the qualification, then and the same thing. Sometimes, just like this man, he's claiming to be a Brahmana, and he's in a bar, right? So what kind of Brahmana is that? Okay, so now we'll continue reading. The problems of the material existence. Who's going to read now? Someone else read. Yes, go ahead. Problems of material existence.
The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be contracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development.
Well, now this is a big point. This is a big point again. That you can't solve the problems of life simply by economic development and a lot of wealth. Okay, go ahead.
In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed. Yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna. Through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentations for family, social, national or international
Inebrities, that means intoxication.
inebrities, then Arjuna would not have said that even an unrivaled kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of demigods in the heavenly planets would be unable to drive away his lamentation.
Lamentations.
Lamentations. He sought therefore refuge in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment by the cataclysms of material nature. Even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this.
Shine punye martya lokam vishanti.
When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in that way. Such downfalls only constitute more causes for lamentation. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, as Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve this problem definitely, and that is the way.
Definitively.
This is
No, she says definitely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Definitely, and that is the way of Krishna consciousness.
Okay. So, the official following of religion is different than being Krishna conscious. This is also explained in the Narada Bhakti Sutras, where it says, let's see, 1 second. Some persons are addicted to materially motivated religion, while others are addicted to economic development, sense gratification, or the idea of salvation from material existence. But prema, love of God, is above all these. This highest stage of love is above mundane religiosity, above economic development, above sense gratification, and above even liberation or salvation. Thus, love of God begins with the firm faith that one who engages in full devotional service has attained perfection in all these processes. The next stage in the process of elevation to love of God is sadhu sangha, association with persons already in the highest stage of love of God. One who avoids such association and simply engages in mental speculation or so-called meditation cannot be raised to the perfectional platform. But one who associates with pure devotees or an elevated devotional society goes to the next stage. Bhajana Kriya, or acceptance of the regulative principles of worshipping the Supreme Lord. One who associates with a pure devotee of the Lord naturally accepts that person as his spiritual master. And when the neophyte devotee accepts a pure devotee as a spiritual master, the duty of the spiritual master is to train the neophyte in the principles of regulated devotional service or Vaidhi Bhakti. At this stage, the devotee's service is based on his capacity to serve the Lord. The expert spiritual master engages his followers in work that will gradually develop their consciousness of service to the Lord. Therefore, the preliminary stage of understanding prema, love of God, is to approach a proper pure devotee, accept him as one's spiritual master, and execute regulated devotional service under his guidance. The next stage is called anartha nivriti, in which all the misgivings of material life are vanquished. A person gradually reaches this stage by regularly performing the primary principles of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master. There are many bad habits we acquire in the association of material contamination, chief of which are illicit sexual relationships, eating animal food, indulging in intoxication, and gambling. The first thing the expert spiritual master does when he engages his disciple in regulated devotional service is to instruct him to abstain from these 4 principles of sinful life. Since God is supremely pure, One cannot rise to the highest perfectional stage of love of God without being purified. In the Bhagavad Gita 10:12, when Arjuna accepted Krishna as the Supreme Lord, he said, Pavitram Paramam Bhavam. You are the purest of the pure. The Lord is the purest, and thus anyone who wants to serve the Supreme Lord must also be pure. Unless a person is pure, he can neither understand what the personality of Godhead is, nor engage in its service in love. For devotional service, as stated before, begins from this point of self-realization, when all misgivings of materialistic life are vanquished. So anyway, this keeps going on, but the idea is here that one has to be purified of the material conception of life and begin to understand the spiritual way of life. And the spiritual way of life puts a premium on service for the Lord, service to the Lord. That is the way to rise above all the inebrities or intoxication of material life and become free of all illusory concepts. Okay? Any questions? We'll go on to the next verse.
What is this cataclysms?
What?
Cataclysms.
What is?
Cataclysm.
Cataclysm. Cataclysm means catastrophic events. Earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes,
Typhoons.
huh?
Typhoons.
Typhoons. Yes?
See,
The plague or
Yeah.
some kind of big disease. These are cataclysms. Flooding, accidents. These are all cataclysmic events in people's lives.
Swamiji, this Bhagavad Gita confirms the Kshina Punya Martya Lokam Vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life.
Okay,
So-
look in 9th chapter. Verse number 21. 9th chapter, verse 21. Ketam bhupasvargalukam vishalam shine punyek vargalukam vishanti. Here it is, right? So now you read. Someone can read the verse. Who wants to read? Anybody?
The verse?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Tirtham bhuktva
No, just read the English.
Just the translation? Okay. When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death.
So these are people who follow the Vedic path of yagyas in order to get an elevated life in the next birth, elevated to heavenly planets where they have very long duration of life, a lot of sense gratification, a lot of happiness. But when their punya is finished, they come back down again, just start all over again. So that's what he's talking about. So now if you read the purport,
One who is promoted to the higher planetary systems enjoys a longer duration of life and better facilities for sense enjoyment. Yet one is not allowed to stay there forever. One is again sent back to this earth upon finishing the resultant fruits of pious activities. He who has not attained perfection of knowledge, as indicated in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadi Asyayata, or in other words, he who fails to understand Krishna, the cause of all causes, becomes baffled about achieving the ultimate goal of life and is thus subjected to the routine of being promoted to the higher planets and then again coming down, as if situated on a Ferris wheel which sometimes goes up and sometimes comes down. The purport is that instead of being elevated to the spiritual world, from which there is no longer any possibility of coming down, one simply revolves in the cycle of birth and death on higher and lower planetary systems. One should better take to the spiritual world to enjoy an eternal life full of bliss and knowledge and never return to this miserable material existence.
Yeah, because there's birth and death everywhere in the material world, even on Swarga and higher planets. And so simply following religion in order to have a happy long life here and after death be elevated to the Devalokas where you have longer life and more happiness is not the purpose of following religion. Some people think that's the purpose, but it's not. And unfortunately, most gurus will not properly teach their disciples. So, I remember one time I asked this follower of Brahma Kumari's, what's your philosophy about? So they said, well, we're in Kali Yuga right now, and we have to perform severe tapasya, so that in the next Satya Yuga we can have very good happiness. Okay, fine, they're going to perform severe tapasya. And next life, they'll be in Satya Yuga where there'll be very long life and happiness. In Satya Yuga people live 100,000 years. And most people are very pious. But this is piety based on material, let's say, interest, not genuine spiritual interest. And one time I asked a Buddhist, I said, what's your philosophy about it? He said, well, our philosophy is like wave theory. Right? So, in this life, one may be on the lower part of the wave, but if you live very piously, then you'll be in the higher part of the wave. So, that's very similar to what's being described here, the Ferris wheel syndrome. Sometimes the Ferris wheel is up high and sometimes it comes down. So these are all materialistic explanations of spiritual life. They're not actually spiritual. Whereas Krishna, he says in the 8th chapter that 8th chapter, 21st verse, Avyakta Shara iti yuktas tamahu paramam gatim yam prapya navyum vartante tadnama paramam mama. That which the Vedantas describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. So, what the devotees are aiming for is to be engaged always in Krishna's service. So there's no difference between pure devotional service in this world and pure devotional service in the spiritual world. Both are connected to Krishna, both are eternal. So in general, if one attains pure devotional service, then they're no longer in this world. In other words, they're no longer affected by anything in this world. And this is explained in the 12th chapter also, where it says, Samakshatru chamitre cha tata manapamana, 12th chapter, 18th and 19th verse, Sitosna sukuduke su sama sandho vivarjitaha tulyaninda stutir moni santusto yena kenachit. Aniketa stira matir. Bhaktimam me priyo nara. So this says, one who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. And, okay, someone can read the purport.
I can read.
Oh, you already read?
Okay.
Okay, Arush, go ahead.
A devotee is always free from all bad associations. Sometimes one is praised and sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society or happiness. He is very
But a devotee
devotee is transcendental to artificial fame or infamy, distress or happiness. He is very patient. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. Therefore he is called silent. Silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means that one should not speak nonsense. One should speak only
of
of
essentials.
essentials. And the most essential speech for the devotee is to speak for the sake of Supreme Lord. A devotee is happy in all conditions. Sometimes he may get very
Palatable.
foodstuffs, and sometimes not. But he is satisfied. Nor does he care for any
Residential facility.
residential facility. He may sometimes live underneath a tree. He may sometimes live in a palace.
Very palatial building.
Very palatial building. He is attracted to neither. He is called fixed because he is fixed in determination and knowledge. We may find some
Repetition.
in the descriptions of qualification of a devotee. But this is just to emphasize the fact that a devotee must acquire all of these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee.
Harava bhaktasya kato mahadguna.
One who is not a devotee has no good qualification. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. Of course, he does not
Extraneously.
endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them.
So this is the qualities of a devotee. A devotee always is free of bad association and not affected by honor and dishonor, fame and infamy, heat and cold, happiness and distress, and so forth. The devotee is always satisfied by whatever condition he may be in, and continues devotional service. So that devotional service is a sign of liberation, even in this world. Okay, but people who follow religion in order to be promoted to higher planets, where the sense gratification is greater, that's not really the purpose of spiritual following. Now someone can say, oh wait a minute, you guys want to go back to Godhead, you want to go back to, it's even better than Swarga. No, the difference between Swarga and Vaikuntha is in Vaikuntha, everyone is focused on pleasing either Lord Narayana or Lord Rama or Krishna. In Swarga, they know about Krishna, they know about Rama, they know about Narayana, but the level of material happiness is so great that they become sometimes diverted from devotional service and just consider that their level of happiness, material happiness, is the goal of life. So, becoming a pure devotee is a special thing. There's no selfish interest. There's only dedication to serving the Lord and helping others understand the Lord.
So in Swargalaka they still do karma? Ekvar karma?
Yeah. Swarga? Yes.
Like heavenly planets. Any heavenly planets also they ekvar karma?
Yes. Definitely.
So from that
Look at
point also-
Indra. Indra is king of the Devas, right? But he kills his own guru. He violated, I think it was Ahalya. And he did so many things, sinful things. And he's the king of the Devas. So when a person has tremendous power and wealth, I mean, Indra, he tried to stop Krishna's pastimes. So, the devotee is not interested in material opulence, power, or sense gratification. They're only interested in pleasing Krishna. So there's a difference between a person like that and a powerful deva. You know, even Lord Brahma, he in a sense tested Krishna by stealing his cows. Right? So a devotee would never do anything like that. A pure devotee. Now Brahma is a devotee also. Indra is a devotee also. But they're slightly influenced by the modes of material nature. Whereas a pure devotee, even though he lives in the material world, not affected by the modes of material nature. Why? Because they're always engaged in devotional service. Mam chayo vipicharina, bhakti yogena sevate, sagunam samatitya brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who always engaged in devotional service unfailingly and never deviates, rises above the influence of the three modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman, in other words, free of material contamination. So that's why devotional service is emphasized, always. And you don't have to extraneously work for develop the good qualities of a devotee. Just by engaging continually in devotional service, all these good qualities develop. Okay, so maybe we'll do one more verse. Sanjaya uvacha ivam upva hrishikesham yudakesha parantapa na yotsna iti govindam upva trustim babhuvaha. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Who wants to read? Anybody? Any lady?
She will read
Page 74.
Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Purport. Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjaya disappointed him again in relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies. Although Arjuna was for the time being overwhelmed with false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentation resulting from family affection and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization, or Krishna consciousness, and would then surely fight. Thus, Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated, since Arjuna would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end.
Okay. Well, that just shows that the defining moment in a person's life is when they can contact bona fide spiritual masters and bona fide devotees and begin to get good instructions how to orient their life toward Krishna. That's the defining moment. If we can come to that threshold of, let's say, making such a decision, then whatever problems we have, whatever difficulties we're experiencing, they will come to an end shortly because of the, let's say, good advice and instructions given by bona fide spiritual masters and bona fide teachers. Okay, so we will maybe stop there and let's do some questions.
So on the previous verse we were talking about, like, once your pious activities are over,
Yeah.
you enjoy the benefits in the higher heavenly planets and you fall down.
Come back down.
Come back down. So is it on the other end possible that you continue your
Yes.
devotional path at higher planets
Yes.
and then you continue your path forward?
It is possible.
But then that is not suggested or that is not recommended?
No, it's recommended.
Okay.
The trouble is the level of material happiness is so great
Okay. You mean
that it's actually an obstacle.
yes.
But there are people that do continue to advance and then attain liberation also. It's not,
And liberation, by liberation you mean moksha or you mean
no, going back to God.
God? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Whoever's on Brahma Loka, at the end of material creation, most of them go back to God.
Okay.
You have, the highest planets in the material world are Janaloka, Mahaloka, and Brahmaloka. So the people there are extremely powerful,
Yeah.
cities that they've mastered, and they're very, very exalted devotees. Now Brahma will go back to Godhead at the end of his life. So whoever is with him and are seriously following, they will go back.
So Prabhuji, in higher planets, because they have more so-called material opulences and happiness, so they don't go through the distress which would cause them to think higher, like why I'm here kind of thing, what we normally think here.
Yes,
So-
they get conditioned by the happiness.
So in this earthly planet, when we see something bad happening, it's our karma. We think that it is our karma. Okay, but when this tsunami kind of thing happens, so that does our karma bring that kind of tsunami kind of thing, like this bigger catastrophic problems like which happens like adhyatmika klesha, adibhautika klesha, adibhautika klesha.
Yeah, but look, there's always miracles that happen. Right? Let's say in tsunami, like 250,000 people die. But out of that, there are also miracles that happen. People are saved miraculously. Right?
Because of their karma, they were saved kind of thing? Or that-
Yes. Yes. And there are many examples like that. Many examples.
So natural disaster happens because of our karmic, like a combined karmic effect, like reaction?
Yeah, there can be collective karma.
Connected karma.
Yeah. But I mean, that doesn't mean that, that means that there were a lot of people who had committed sinful activities. But amongst those people, there's always some who have escaped miraculously in unexpected ways. Why? Because they had good karma. Like you can have an accident, right? The person next to you dies, you don't die. So that happens a lot. So that means that you had some saving grace. But that's just to teach us that the rest of our life we should be completely serious. Just like Ajamil, he had a second chance. That's why devotees will go all over the world and give people a chance to have prasadam, to hear Bhagavad Gita, to chant Hare Krishna. That is a life changer. That's called Agyata Sukriti, imperceptible spiritual advancement. At the time when you're walking down the street, you see some Harinam party come by, and someone hands you a flower, another person gives you some prasadam, another person convinces you to take a book. You had no, you had no expectation of that, right? But due to the devotees making the effort to go out and chant and distribute prasadam and so forth, that person got good, let's say, auspiciousness. And in an imperceptible way they made spiritual advancement. They were not expecting to do it, they had no desire to do it, but yet, by the mercy of the devotee, it happened. Now, that can translate into later on in life, there might be a situation where they're with a bunch of other people who have very bad karma, but somehow or other they're miraculously saved. So, therefore, meeting genuine devotees, associating with them, receiving instruction, chanting, all these things, having prasadam, this is all mercy. We might not deserve it, but the devotee will give freely. So when Lord Chaitanya came, there's a prayer, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premapadayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chase Namo Namaha. When Lord Chaitanya came, he opened up the treasure chest of love of God and distributed freely the mercy of Krishna. So he's called the most magnanimous incarnation. So Krishna said, you must surrender unto me, Sarvadharma Parityajya. Lord Chaitanya didn't say you have to surrender unto me. He just said, here, here's the treasure. I'm giving it out freely. You don't have to pay for it, it's free.
Prabhu, for Agyata Sukriti, someone who receives that benefit, does he have good karma? That's why he becomes a recipient? Or
No.
why is it that
Not
he
necessarily. No, I just gave the example. You just happened to be walking down the street when the devotees came by in the Sankirtan. And he became attracted, and then someone came up to him, gave him prasadam, gave him flour, gave him burrito, gave him a book. And that's the mercy of the devotee. That's the good fortune of that person. Did they have good karma? They may have or may not have had. But the devotee has given them the opportunity, even if they have very bad karma, given them the opportunity to be introduced to Krishna.
But isn't it that person should
And by the way, we're going on Sankirtan tomorrow.
Yeah.
What did you say?
So that person should be in mode of goodness, only then he will receive, he will become,
Not necessarily.
become receptive to the devotees.
Not necessarily.
Doesn't matter about his modes and...
I think I heard in one of the Prabhupada lectures he was talking to his early disciples and they were thinking that they did something good and Prabhupada finally said, I made you good karma.
Yes.
Nobody was qualified, he just gave them.
Yeah. Causeless mercy. There was no cause. They didn't do good karma. It's just the pure devotee's causeless mercy. Yeah. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.